A very warm welcome from Djuma Game Reserve. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our PM or Sunset Safari this afternoon. This is a beautiful afternoon, Tuesday, sometime in May. We don't really know what day it is these days. Our days tend to, I'm lucky I know that it's Tuesday. The days tend to all meld into each other. My name is Mark. Vium is with me on camera. That's spelled W-I-U-M. And Brian and Scott are somewhere else at Djuma, and they're driving around. We're going to, between the two of us, we're going to see if we can keep the afternoon active with all sorts of animals that we have here in the Greater Kruger National Park. We're in a game reserve known as Djuma Game Reserve. It forms part of the Sabi Sand Game Reserve, and that in itself forms part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And if that sounds very confusing, in a little while I'll be able to pull out a map and I'll be able to try and show you what it is all about. But for the time being, we've got a couple of buffalo. We're right in front of Djuma's Gallagher camp, and this is a private little camp. It's a beautiful little camp. It's almost just a little luxury house out in the bushveld. We can see the deck in the background. And through the trees on the other side of a drainage line is the little camp itself with its own swimming pool, and it's a self-catering little camp here at Djuma. And well, I don't know if the people are still there, but there have been people there all weekend. Now in front of the camp is this little waterhole, and two of the local buffalo bulls seem to want to hang out here. One of the reasons I'm here is because there were some elephant tracks coming this way, and I want to see if I can follow up on these ellies. It looked like the three that Scott found this morning. It looked like one. Are we going to be hit? There's a possibility of where these elephants have gone, so we're going to head out there. These buffalo are so active, I'm reluctant to leave them, but we are going. It's buffalo wallowing or buffalo sitting. And that's even slower than flat cats, lion prides lying in the sun or in the shade. I don't mean to demean you, Mr. Buffalo. You are a wonderful specimen of a buffalo. You're actually a magnificent bull. And I know you'd rather not be disturbed, and I want to leave them in peace more than anything else. Elephants, on the other hand, either she's maybe napping under a tree in the shade because it's quite a hot day. I think our temperatures have doubled almost. From probably only about 14-15 degrees when at its coldest this morning, it's probably close to 30 degrees at the heat of the day today. So it's almost double the temperature than it was this morning. How that translates in Fahrenheit is probably from the 60s to the high 80s. Touching on 90 heat of the day, but we've got a bit of a breeze coming in now. Blue skies, so we've got 360 degrees of blue, which is quite typical for our dry season. Very low down on the horizon all around us. You get to see the little bit of a dust layer that we have because it is a dusty dry season. Interested to know if any of our zoomies on the waterhole cam have seen these three elephants today, because they have been around. There's a snake track just crossed over. any of the zoomings, but I know that somehow it's really somewhere. So we're going to start to look for them, and then ultimately I'd like to head a little bit further west, because the end of drive this afternoon, no, not this afternoon, this morning, it was New Zealand's afternoon, our morning. If you're watching Diane Sinead in New Zealand, or Chris in Australia, Sam in Australia, or Uncle Rob in Australia. But this morning we had 4 giraffes, 4 adult female giraffes at the end of the drive, and it was so sad because we found them towards the end of the drive, and I hope that maybe they didn't go too far. So with the 3 elephants that are around, 4 giraffes, maybe we'll find something.
You tried to pull that mic more towards your mouth.
This one?
Yeah. You just tighten the cord.
The problem is when it comes closer, then I knock it with my fingers on the steering wheel. Well, it's not just me driving around this afternoon. We're lucky enough to have 2 vehicles, and we cover different areas. We try and cover different ground, unless we need to work on some tracks together. And this afternoon, Scott and Brian are elsewhere on Djuma, and I'll leave it up to Scott to tell you where he is. We're hitting Mvubu Road, and I'm going to be going up north towards Whipples of Cutline. And I'll see you through the afternoon. Bye for now.
Good afternoon and welcome on board with where he was. The bird land up on a marina tree. Try and hurry up. It's on this dead branch. Well, it's managed to. A very, very warm welcome. And this is one of the prettiest birds we get out here. And the great thing about this show is that it's an interactive safari, so you can ask us questions at any stage. And to do so, you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And a question that you could ask, for example, is what kind of bird is this? A lot of our longer term viewers will know. Great camera work there, Brian. So as I was saying, a lot of our longer term viewers will know this bird. It's a popular residence. Oh, it's flown down. It may have caught something. Let's see if it flies up with a little grasshopper or insect. I'm sure it's going to pop out at any stage. They usually fly down onto the ground, catch whatever it is they're after, mainly insects, and then fly off onto a perch to feed on it. Although sometimes they'll gobble up their kill on the ground, or sometimes they miss. I'm not sure what happened in this specific instance. The grass was too long. And we have already got a question through wanting to know which bird this is. So, good afternoon, Tara in Wisconsin. And you're looking at a lilac-breasted roller. And as I said, some of our longer term viewers will know what bird this is because it's one of the most beautiful we have all year round. It doesn't migrate like some of the other birds that we see in our summer. And we typically always try and stop and show you them when they are close enough by. You can tell that very clearly it's a fairly windy afternoon, and you can see it almost riding that branch. And well done to Ginny on Twitter, who wrote in saying that this was a lilac-breasted roller. So I didn't let anyone know which one it was, so well done, Ginny. And we're going to continue now and leave this pretty bird. I've chatted to Mark and I hear that he is on the trail of some elephants, so he's trying to track them down, which is great prospects. It could well be the same three that we saw this morning, as their tracks I saw heading into the same direction where he found some more tracks. And judging from where they were this morning to where I saw some tracks as we headed out and drive, and relative to where he found tracks, I'm guessing it's the same elephants. And we are really fortunate to spend every morning and every afternoon out here in order to try and get an idea of how the animals are moving and where they're moving to, because it certainly does help in us finding them. The flies are back out in full force, as you can notice, hence me swatting my hands around my head fairly regularly, but not nearly as bad as a few weeks ago. Well, that one was in my ear for a while, that you may have seen, making itself at home. For those of you who are new to the show, just to let you know a little bit about how we go about trying to plan an afternoon out here. Mark and I had a chat before we came out, and we kind of picked general areas to move into and search for animals. Even now, my plan is to turn left at the next road junction in order to take us towards the waterhole. However, I could get to that road junction and find something or hear something that causes me to alter my plan and turn right and avoid going to the dam or waterhole. So there are a lot of changes in plan, basically, that you should ready yourself for. And just around this next corner that we're driving around, there could be a pride of lion, a leopard, a herd of elephant. We don't know. We will shortly. No, nothing around this corner, but the next one there could be something, and that's the beauty of being out here, is that we often get surprised by the animals. As much as we like to think we know what they're doing and where they're going, they quite often surprise us. And welcome on board. And it's disappeared. To distinguish female from male, the female has got the rusty throat and chest patches, whereas the male just has a black collar. And it's a very small bird, probably as long as I continue sitting around. It's the one on the top left over here, and it's easy to distinguish female from male. The female has got the rusty throat and chest patches, whereas the male just has a black collar. And it's a very small bird, probably as long as I continue sitting around with the flies here. and we'll see you a little bit later.
That's good to miss up. As we go over the ridge. He's gone to Buffelshoek. Don't go to Buffelshoek. Come back to Djuma. Okay, well let's get up ahead, see if we can see them before they disappear too far. They're right here at the junction with the main Buffelshoek sign. There's another one coming into the road. Well, a nice way to start the afternoon, since we ended this morning with these giraffe, and I think it is the same group because it's pretty much in line with where we saw them, although these giraffe are actually heading that way. 1, 2, 3, I can see 4, I think it is the same 4, and it's possible that they're out browsing, 4 ladies. We're going to take a closer look at them. I want to see if either one of them is lactating, which might give an indication that they might have a calf somewhere. And giraffe are notorious for leaving their calves behind and heading out and browsing the whole day and then coming back to find their child at some point. So we'll start with that female. And she doesn't look like she's lactating. She's unfortunately mostly hidden by a bush. She's feeding on... Wait, let me see. It looks like a young torchwood that she's feeding on. Oh, it's quite a strong wind picking up. It's a berg wind. It's a very strong almost northeasterly. Not the usual direction we get wind from, and it's certainly a lot warmer than our southeasterly that we get, or our southerly wind that brings in the cold air from the coast. I just want to go backwards a little bit. The tallest mammal in Africa. Welcome to our sunset safari. Welcome to what a wonderful afternoon. Starting with some giraffe and this old girl who's got her tail. She looks like she's got her tail caught in some scrub. And either that or she's scratching her legs, but she was a bit wound up in some of those branches. Here's a quiz for you. When all the giraffes are gone, because by then probably all the elephant and the rhino will be gone, because the rhino are going to be gone first. This is the reality of Africa's wildlife. No matter which way you look at it, the reality is that within a couple of years the rhino are going to be gone. At the current rate at which humans are dealing with the rhino issue, your children are not going to grow up to see rhinos, or at least if you have children, their children are not going to see rhinos. And it's highly doubtful that the next generation of human beings are even going to see elephants because of the rate at which they are being systematically wiped out for human greed. And the next to be gone is going to be the giraffe because of its size, because it just seems that us humans cannot seem to coexist with megafauna. And giraffe, despite the fact that there's absolutely nothing that we can use or do with the giraffe other than wonder at this magnificent creature that is this tallest creature on earth, this huge body with long legs and a long neck. And mate, look at this, everything about a giraffe is just so prehistoric almost, as it is with elephant and rhino. But I've got a question for you. After the giraffe, what is next? What's the next one? That's the next biggest mammal that we as the human race are going to wipe off of this planet. The weirdest thing is that we're not only starting at the biggest, we're also starting at the smallest. And we're wiping out some of the smallest things too that are so vital for life on Earth. Mrs. G, I just want to turn sideways a little bit, but I don't want to disturb you. And it's not great to be looking into the sun, but at this stage I can't really get around her to look, because she's right next to the road. I want her to get accustomed to me, and then maybe I can make a little bit of a detour. If I could just get a little bit forward and make a little bit of a detour, and then we'll come around to the western side of them and we'll be able to see a lot better, because right now all it is more or less just silhouetted in this late afternoon sun. Amazing that she's allowing us to sit here in such close proximity, and she's so relaxed. You know, giraffe are probably one of the most gentle creatures you could ever encounter in the bush. There isn't a bad bone in their body. Unless, of course, you've got a pride of lion that are hanging on, then they can get quite vicious when they start kicking and screaming. Well, okay, not vocally screaming, but they start getting quite defensive. And many a lion has had a broken jaw, or a kick to the head, or a kick to the body. Giraffe can kick with front and back legs. They lash out front, sideways, backwards. Quite different to a horse that can only really kick out to the back. Giraffe can actually kick out sideways and strike with their front legs. Also, if you imagine a giraffe rearing up and striking down and sideways with their front legs, it can be quite intimidating for a cat. And it's not that easy for a lion to bring down a giraffe, but it does happen. See, look at that, much better angle and much better light. This is the female, one of the older females of the four that we're seeing. You see how she wraps her tongue around the branches and strips the branches of their leaves. And actually quite a little bit of fresh growth on that tree, probably why she's browsing on it. She looks like she might be lactating, but that might also just be remnants of past carbs, that she's got swollen memories, because she's not a youngster. There is an older one. The oldest one of all is the one that we saw this morning. She's got the thinnest of horns, and she's right at the back. I'd say that this one is in her prime. She's prime adult, as it were, sort of the equivalent of a... No, I'm not going to make any analogies here. I'm going to get into trouble, I think. But for a giraffe, she's a mom, not a grandmom. But the old girl at the back, she's a grandma. Can't see her too well. Not the one on the right, but there's just the one on the left that we can only see a little bit of her tail. You'll notice how narrow and thin and hairless her horns are compared to these other three females, if we get to see them. Unfortunately, they're on Buffelshoek. They are making their way towards Buffelshoek Dam, and I'm quite sure that they're going to get there eventually. At the moment, if I look down the hill, I'd say we are about 300 meters, 250 yards, 300 meters, 300 yards, well, thereabouts. Who's going to measure? Or who's going to challenge me? But they're browsing, and they are making their way steadily towards the dam, and it might be very nice if we can do a little bit of a loop now quickly and come back to the dam, or come and we're going to lose them now anyway. They're going so deep into Buffelshoek. But perhaps a little bit later we can come back. I want to go and follow up on something else that we found just after our sunrise safari this morning. At the end of our sunrise safari, when I was signing off, we found these 4 girls just coming onto Djuma. They already crossed over Djuma and they're on Buffels to the north right now. There you can see that it's a steady pace towards the dam. Stopping and browsing, but they're not stopping and browsing for lengthy periods. They browse a little bit and they seem to be moving a lot. So my guess is they might even be moving back towards the youngsters that they might have left somewhere. So I'm not going to go too far. The other important thing is that just after finding these giraffe this morning, we had to say goodbye to you all. We had to log off. It was the end of our drive. And while we found the giraffe, I found some drag marks. So as soon as we signed off this morning and as soon as we said goodbye, Bim and I went back to those drag marks and we followed them almost all the way to Sydney's Dam from Buyatilla Access Road. Clearly a leopard tracks, and I thought perhaps Karula, but it could also be Shadow from the Aratusa side. I don't know who it is, and quite clearly there must have been a kill because she was dragging something. There were also squid tracks, there were also hyena tracks. For some reason I couldn't follow those drag marks. When they went into the grassland and it wasn't, it's almost as though the load got lighter and lighter as she was dragging it. So I don't know what happened. But that's what I want to go and have a look at as well right now. I've just seen there's a lilac-breasted roller that's just caught something, and I hope it hasn't swallowed it yet, but it looks like maybe it has. Had something in its beak, but I was just trying to get a good view of it. One of our most beautiful birds here Djuma is the lilac-breasted roller. We've got the perfect light on it right now. Unusual to be able to get this opportunity. A little bit of a breeze, and it's actually facing the breeze, so it's a lilac-breasted roller in all its glory. Jimalin, talking about giraffe because we've been with some giraffe, but Jimalin was saying that she's heard that giraffe grow at a rate of 1 inch a day. How long does that growth rate last? So I wouldn't like to put a figure on it. I personally don't like to put numbers to things because it's. But I can tell you that yes, it's probably correct in that giraffe are probably the most, or the fastest growing mammal from birth to being weaned, and it certainly is a very, very fast growth rate. Whether it is an inch a day or not, I don't know. At that rate, at the rate that they grow, it's the first 6 months more than anything else that they do have such a fast growth rate. So this lilac-breasted roll is for pepperbird. But now we want to go and see what else we can find, because there's giraffe are making their way down here to Sydney's dam. I must have swallowed what it was eating while I was making my way around the worry bush to try and get a better view of it with the light on it. 18 or so different colours on one bird. It's fantastic. As for the elephant tracks earlier, well, they're in a fairly big block, and I don't want to go crashing through the bushes off-road just to try and find them, because it's actually just going to upset them more than anything else, or they're not going to enjoy that. But hopefully maybe we can go back there a little bit later and head back towards Gari Dam, or I can rely on, with a little bit of luck, I can rely on some of our zoomies if they are going to be keeping an eye on Gari Dam or Djuma Waterhole. You can let me know when those ellies may be coming. In the dam at Sydney's dam, but there's nothing around the outer areas. It's quite a hot, windy afternoon, so I don't expect many animals to be out in the open just yet. They'll come out to the open around sunset. But now I want to just follow up on some drag marks. There were drag marks, and I followed them after we shut down. I have a sneaky suspicion that there is something somewhere, but if it is, I'm sure that this cat probably stashed it under a bush. If it hasn't been stolen by a hyena or something, but so far nothing here. Hippo track, but there's no surprise there. There are a lot of hippo that use this dam. It's one of the biggest dams in the area. Rams up ahead, that doesn't help much when you're looking for a leopard or a leopard kill, to see the likes of a couple of impala hyena tracks. Of course they might be oblivious to the fact that there might be something here somewhere. So I think I've got to concentrate on what I'm looking at on the ground here. So I think it's best that we hand you over to Scott and see what Scott's got to tell you this afternoon for a little bit. And I'm going to keep on searching this immediate area. There is a carcass here, or there was something that happened here early this morning. I want to see if I can solve some of this riddle, and I'll be back with you shortly.
Welcome back, and I must apologize, I didn't finish answering the question that Dawn sent through a little bit earlier, and apologies for that. We saw the little chin spot Patis, and then Mark found the giraffe, and there was no time to get it in then. But I will answer your question now, and Dawn was interested to know whether we ever see animals in huge numbers like in the migration in Kenya. And no, we don't really, not in this part of Africa. The largest herds we will see are probably of buffalo, the Cape buffalo, and they may be up to 400 or 500 strong. Occasionally you'll get bigger herds than that in the Kruger National Park, further north of where we are, but we are open to the Kruger Park. So the answer then, I guess, is just a plain and simple no. We don't really ever see large numbers, and it's a very unique occurrence seeing the large numbers that you do see in the migration. It's one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on earth, and there are a lot of people that arrive in the Sabi Sands on safari and are actually disappointed because they were under the impression that they may be coming to the Great Migration, but that's a very specific wilderness event, and it also only happens in Kenya and Tanzania, and depending on the time of the year would depend on where you go, into either southern Tanzania or the southern Serengeti, rather, not southern Tanzania, the southern Serengeti within Tanzania, or further north into the Mara Triangle in Kenya. There are also other migrations. There's another migration in Zambia that hasn't been as well documented and is not as well known. And other animals as well will migrate, but we don't have that phenomenon here. That's not to say there are not seasonal movements of animals, but not in their hundreds of thousands. In Indiana, good afternoon. Thanks so much for sending your question through. Paul is interested to know whether elephant populations are controlled within the Kruger National Park, and I believe they are. However, we don't often hear about it or see about it or see much about it because it can be quite a controversial, well, it is quite a controversial subject, and there are various ways of controlling populations. You can give animals contraceptives, but the easiest and most effective way to control elephant populations is to wipe out entire herds at a time. You cannot take select members out of a herd because the process in doing so will disrupt the other members of the herds mentally, and they'll probably want to kill every human they see thereafter. So whole herds are exterminated, and it's obviously not a very pleasant maneuver, but because we as humans have populated so much of the planet, we've left very little areas for animals to exist, and therefore occasionally populations are needed to keep in check. If there were too many elephants, they could cause a lot of damage to the vegetation and therefore have a knock-on effect to other herbivores and to the predators. So for a certain time, elephant culling was banned in South Africa, but it was reopened about, I think in around 2006 or 2007. But once the ban was reopened in order to bring down elephant populations, I haven't heard much about it, and I think it gets done very quietly, which I understand. Good question though, and as harsh as keeping numbers down of animals, it's a better scenario to be in than having endangered animals. So I guess that's the bright side of what is quite a sad story, that we do have to occasionally, or people do have to occasionally, bring down populations of certain animals. Where are all the animals hiding? Brian and myself did pass by Treehouse Dam and Twin Dams. There were a few buffalo bulls lying around, but not too much excitement there. Very happy to hear that Mark managed to track down some giraffe again for you, so he's done well this morning and this afternoon. There's not many giraffe around at the moment, so that was great work on his behalf, and I hope you enjoyed that sighting with him. Current plan is to now head towards Buffalo's Hook Dam and see if anything's going on there. And I know it may seem like we are just heading from waterhole to waterhole, but there's different routes that we take and can take every afternoon or every drive we go out. And even if we were to drive the same road up and down, all drive, things would change. Birds would come in, animals would move through the area, so there's no set formula that works out here, and it's just a combination of your gut feel. I've been asking Brian if there's any areas where he would like to check, because at the moment the bush is not giving us too much information. Other days there will be lots of tracks, you'll hear animals alarm calling, which may lead you and guide you in certain areas, but this afternoon we are not getting any info from our spies out here. Our spies are the monkeys, the squirrels, francolins, all the antelope, or most of the antelope that will let off various distress calls if they see predators. So we do have a few spies, and we just need to keep in touch with them in order to get a better idea of where all the animals are. James from Kansas City, good afternoon and welcome on board. Now, I'm not sure if James's question was sparked from the fact that I did update the viewers on this morning's drive about the Nkahuma Pride, which were last seen heading towards a very large herd of buffalo last night, sadly out of our property to the north of us. And James is interested to know that when lions do trail large herds of buffalo, and they are notorious for doing it, James, you're quite right, they can hear the buffalo or smell them and can often beeline directly in that direction. There's a lot of buffalo in those herds, depending, which means they do have a lot of defense, but at the same time it means there's a lot of different opportunities or options in terms of meals that the lion could go for. They could go on a younger, smaller, easier prey, or an older cow that may be on her last legs. But there's a broad spectrum of young to old and big to small, which gives the lions great opportunities, whereas with the old buffalo bulls, it's pretty much always going to be a tough battle to bring one of them down. Now, when lions do get into the proximity of a large herd of buffalo, there's many different circumstances or scenarios that could reaction. If the lion then managed to bring down any given buffalo, the herd will often regroup after their initial fright and then come back in. There's often bulls in those breeding herds, and they'll come charging back in, trying to chase the lion. If a buffalo calf has been caught, the cows will even come in and try to get the lions off their kill, or off their calf rather, off the buffalo, and they can very often be successful in chasing lions off buffalo that they've already pulled down and got their claws and teeth sunk into, which is incredible. There's a lot of buffalo. And a treat. .tv. We're not too far from fingers, and I wonder if it's a whole troop. There's only individuals of tracks of one individual going down the road, so maybe it's a male who's on his own looking for a new troop, or maybe it was just the fact that only one monkey ran down the road. Fresh, and I can tell they're fresh from the crispness and clarity of the track. Got a question through from Kathleen in New York. Afternoon, Kathleen, and welcome on board with us. Kathleen would like to know whether we need to be extra cautious when tracking on foot during the rutting season. And it is the rutting season now. The antelope are fighting quite fiercely with one another, especially the impala over females. And I know that in America, certain deer will become aggressive towards us as humans when they are in their rutting period. So people are warned to be cautious during the rutting period for the deer. And I think that is obviously true, and that's the way it is over there. But out here, it's not necessarily the case. It's very unlikely that an impala would see us as a threat or a target when they are on the rut, like a deer may see you in different parts of the world. So no, I don't think we would have to be extra cautious of them, and you basically always have to be extra cautious when walking around here. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is, what time of the year it is, you should always be extra cautious. But I don't personally worry about the antelope during the rutting season. Having said that though, you do hear horror stories of people that do get killed by antelope, but it's not necessarily during the rutting season, and more often than not it's in unnatural areas where the antelope may not have predators, or they may have too much interaction with people and therefore get a little bit cheeky and cause trouble. Good question though, Kathleen, but it's not an issue out here. Well, here we are at Buffalo's Hook Dam. The hippo and the heron are here. That's no surprise. Just going to try and get us into a decent spot where Brian can take you on a tour of the waterhole. I'm just driving along the edge to see if there's any tracks along the way of anything exciting. A lot of animals that do come down here to drink. Okay. Well, welcome to Buffalo's Hook Dam Sunset Cruise. Now what I'm tempted to do, oh, that noise was the hippo. Oh, and he is occasionally playing for us. It's been recent developments. He's possibly been doing some acting classes late at night in amongst grazing for grass, because he's begun to perform a little bit over the last few days, and by perform I mean open up his mouth and toss water into the air, displaying how big and mean he is. And who knows, maybe he's enjoying a little bit of company, or maybe it's quite the contrary. He's decided to retire on his own here at this dam, as he's more often than not alone. You'll notice as he... oh, no. Wonderful. Well, you'll notice as he puts his nose under the water, he can actually close his nostrils. So that's a handy adaptation that hippos have. And they can also flatten their ears behind their head. There we go. As they do it, the ears simultaneously flatten against the head. And even though he's not doing it at the moment, they can hold their breath for long periods of time underwater, 3 to 5 minutes. But more often than not, they take breaths every 30 seconds to a minute. The heron is just behind him on the banks of the dam. Sadly, it's not hunting at the moment, as it really is great to watch. But we don't need the heron to hunt when the hippo's performing like this, that's for certain. But those are the two local mayors, or the local chiefs of this waterhole. They are always here. And occasionally you see them right next to one another. The heron sometimes sits on the hippo's head or on its back. I wonder how long we'd have to sit here and wait to see some other animals come down and drink. It'll certainly happen. I'd put money on it that between now and sunset, which is in about an hour's time, I'm guessing. My watch is broken, so that's no good for telling the time, but it's probably in an hour that the sun's going to go down, and I'm almost certain something will come down and drink, whether it's Nyala, elephants, leopard, or just birds. I'm not too sure, but there will be some action here. It's about deciding whether to be patient and do a stakeout, or continue in search of other things. So, due to the fact that Brian and I are not sure what to do, we'll open this one up to you and let us know if you'd like to spend or do a 15-minute stakeout here or head on for fresh beginnings and fresh findings. The choice is yours. So let us know your thoughts on hashtag Safari Live, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.com.tv rather, and let us know if we're going to do a 15-minute stakeouts or head off. Just got a question through from Rosie on Twitter, and Rosie has noticed that I keep saying he when referring to this hippo, and I am fairly confident it is a bull, very, very confident. Brent has also had the same opinion on the matter. The bulls are considerably larger than the cows, and it's uncommon for a cow to be on her own. Cows and calves usually are in attendance with other cows and calves. It's not always the case, and there certainly was, and rightfully so, speculation that this could be a female who was hanging around here because she lost her calf to the Nkuhuma Pride. We were very close to this dam this time last week.
Not only commend you for your patience and staying with us and then live, discussing whether it's a contrail or a chemtrail. Debatable subject these days. Don't know where I was going with that, but anyways, I just thought I'd mention it. That's the only thing we know about civilization, is an aeroplane coming overhead. Because right now we could switch off and listen quietly, and apart from an impala very far in the bush to my right, and this noisy radio which I could silence with a push of a button, apart from a little bit of a hum from the jigger from our broadcast equipment, there's actually, you cannot hear a single mechanical sound. There's not a human sound to be heard. I think you've got my face back on your screen. I'm sorry about that, but you're just going to have to live with it until I find an animal to put on your screen that replaces a picture of my hat and my head. But good to have a picture back. Now let me find something to put on that picture. Albury's Road, we are heading north, going back to the cut line, and then we're going to go back to the west. Looks like a kudu, and another kudu. That's very nice actually, because we've got low sun. We can just stop here. We might be able to get her coming through this little gap with the sun behind her, coming through her mane. They are just such elegant creatures. forward a little bit. Hey, isn't that better than my hat? Sometimes you can use light very nicely for photography. Normally, looking into the light like this, you might only get a silhouette, but it's soft enough that we're getting the outline of the finer hairs. You can see the lower side of her neck, on the back of her neck, and over the nuchal muscle, even the fine hairs running down the line of her tummy. Kudu are the largest antelope we get here. They're a little bit bigger than, say, your white-tailed deer in North America. Oh, what was that? A little dawn. I'm going to start up and move a little bit forward. Two kudu cows here. I don't know if there are any more. They might also have calves. There's a little bit dense, the bush. Now, past this fallen bush below, we might get a better view. Questions at WildEarthTV. Oh, here's another lady right in front of us. Lady Kudu. Hello, Mrs. Kudu. The world is watching. And I hope you're all feeling a little bit of this really relaxed and peaceful energy that they tend to give out. There's just a harmony with nature when you watch something like this. Those huge ears like satellite dishes picking up even the minutest of sounds. And it is a fairly quiet afternoon. The wind has stopped. Each kudu having its own individual stripes, much like a zebra or like a fingerprint, like any animal, doesn't matter what it is. None of them are clones of each other. Every single animal is different, and it's only really animals that have markings that we can maybe see the difference because they look so much alike to us. But much like we use spot patterns on leopards, you could use stripe patterns on kudu to keep track of individuals. The kudu barcode, I call it. Imagine inventing a kudu barcode. You can just sort of aim it at the kudu and it'll call up the kudu's history, where it was last seen and who it lives with, when it last had a baby. Of course, there are thousands of kudu, so it would be a very big database.
And it's invasion of privacy.
Okay, well, we could always get them to sign a release. But it is a little bit of an invasion of privacy, I guess. But I like to keep track of, we keep track of lions and leopards and elephants, and based on their markings or their tusks or their ears or whatever it may be. Why not keep track of kudu? Bye-bye, ladies. Thank you very much for saying hello to everybody in the world. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to contact me or Scott via Twitter. Oh, there's a little one lagging behind. Oh, there's a bull. Mush. Look at this. behind him off to the left. I don't know if you can see it from your angle, but back in the bushes are two very tiny little calves. And this is a bull in his prime, well over 6-7 years old. I don't know, could he live probably till about 8 or 10, I think, maybe 12. Farther further on. I'm going to go forward here. I don't know if you can see those little. Can you see the little ones behind him from where you are?
Very obstructed.
They are a little. Now, what is very special about this is that most of the year we find either kudu bulls in the bachelor herd, or we find the female groups with their calves. We very, very seldom find them together. Now, I'm wondering if this might not be one of those bulls that was in a bachelor herd we were seeing quite regularly through the summer. And he's joined up with these cows because there's most likely one of them that is coming into estrus and it's time for some mating. And look at the size of him. I mean, he's twice the size of any of these cows that we've been seeing. I would say, in fact, what would be a really good idea is something I haven't done for a while. I noticed Brent did it again just recently with that very big elephant bull, and it's something I love to do when there's a big mammal like a giraffe or an elephant, or in this case a kudu bull, just to give you an idea of size. I don't want to move too much. I want you to take a snapshot of this picture if we can. It's not ideal because we're looking into the late afternoon sun. And he's standing. Maybe I could find a better place to do it, but I've also got to wait until he moves on. I don't want to disturb him too much. Behind him there are two calves with another cow, and he's possibly courting. I'm wondering if he's one of the 5 or 6 kudu bulls we had in a bachelor herd that was living here in the summer months, making his way through the back. It might take a while for me to be able to go and stand where he was standing so that you can get an idea of size. I don't think they're as big as a moose. I know they are bigger than white-tailed deer. There's an adult cow moving along now. She's quite big, and you can maybe, once the calves come through, he might follow. Other than size, Nigel wants to know the difference between female kudu and female nyala. Now, if you're looking at this calf, remember how big that cow was. This calf is a fraction of the size of the adult, and that calf is already bigger, or about the size, this one too, about the size of a female nyala. So, apart from size, it's the color. There's a color difference which is quite distinct. The nyala tend to be a lot more rusty, reddish, kudu a little bit grayer than the nyala, and the stripes of a nyala are a lot close together. There are a lot more stripes on a nyala than there are on kudu. I think more than double the number of stripes. You might find 12, 14 stripes on a nyala and only maybe 6 to 8 stripes on a kudu. I'm going to wait for him to move along. I'm hoping he's going to follow those other females and the calves, so that I can go and stand there. We can get an idea of how big, because if we do the same thing with most of the animals that we see, we've done it with elephant, we've done it with giraffe, and doing it with kudu, I can maybe find some nyala and try the same trick with nyala, and you can always gauge an animal by my size. I'm not quite as tall as Brent, and of course sometimes with Brent's 6'3" odd, it gives you more of an idea of size. I'm under 6, I'm about 5'10" with heels. Quarter-inch heels. Jenny, hello Jenny. Sending a tweet noticing that Nyala don't have this hump on the back. Hello Mr. Kudu, so you're not following the girls after all, are you? He's magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Maybe I can find a different spot to do a size comparison if he's going to stop and let us. Now let me try this, because the light is better rather than looking into the sun. Now that he's on the eastern side of the road, if I can just sneak forward, maybe we can do the same thing with the light on the sunlight. Oh, I'll have to come back. I did mark the spot where he was. There's a good, if he stops somewhere in this gap, Mr. Kudu, just behind that tree, there's a good marker. That tree there. Stop. Okay, don't. Okay, well, I don't know if... Were you zoomed in at all for that?
I was on a long shot.
Okay, well, we'll try it with that other tree that he was at. People mentioning on a tweet that we haven't seen one particular well, we haven't seen that bachelor herd for a while, and one member of that bachelor herd that we were seeing was the monster kudu that I called. It was either called Zeus or Hercules, or I mean, it was just a monster kudu. He had this widespread. There's another bull. Maybe he is with this group. Anyways, I've only just noticed the second bull now. Oh, he's also magnificent. So I was parked right here, in fact. I'm just going to go in to stand where this kudu bull was standing. But yeah, a few people mentioning we haven't seen that other big bull with the very widespread horns. But that's possibly because that bachelor herd has moved on a bit. I don't know who these two boys are. We can stick around and see if there might be others. Interesting that the ladies and the calves have moved off a little bit to the south, and they're heading to the east. So where was he? He was the back there. Standing somewhere here, wasn't he? I think so. Somewhere here. The other alternative is to stand in the road where his tracks are, because maybe there's a screenshot of him in the road. So he would have been here. in my umbilical cord. I'm not seeing any other bulls, but anyways, hope somehow, somewhere I was standing was, especially being on the road where his tracks cross the road, maybe there's a spot there that you could get an idea of how big a kudu bull is. Okay, I'm going to go and see if we can find where those giraffe went to, and I've still got to look for those ellies, so I'm going to hand you over to Scott and see what he's up to this afternoon, and I'll be with you again in a little while. Don't go away. Bye bye, kudu. Thank you. Love you lots. Yeah, he's horny. He's ready to go again.